Before we start the show this week, I've got to tell you about this fantastic new podcast called Marvels, based on the legendary graphic novel by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross. It's an incredible window into the Marvel Universe. The show takes place in the backdrop of the Fantastic Four showdown with Galactus, but it follows a photographer, a student, and a journalist on their mission to investigate a sprawling, superpowered conspiracy theory. I've listened to this thing. I've checked out a couple of episodes. Honestly, I'm very impressed by this podcast. It is so cool. It brings the pages of this comic to life, and I hope you get a chance to check it out. I mean, if you want to go learn more, head over to marvelspodcast.com for all the information you'll need about this Marvels podcast. And if you decide you want to give it a listen, you can go over to StitcherPremium.com and sign up with the code COMIC. You'll get a free month of Stitcher Premium, which will let you listen to Marvels right now. That's StitcherPremium.com with the promo code COMIC.
Hello and welcome to an I Read Comic Books Minisode with Kait and Kate. That's Kate Lamphere and Kate Scotchless here to discuss, guess what? A young adult graphic novel. No way.
Shocking.
We are discussing Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, art by Faith Erin Hicks, and colors by Sarah Stern. Rainbow Rowell I know from the current run of Runaways and also a whole lot of prose young adult books, and then I realized when we were doing this that Faith Erin Hicks has done a whole bunch of Avatar and Lumberjanes, and so I already loved her art. And then it turns out that Sarah Stern has done a bunch of stuff for Boom, like Brave Chef Brianna and Goldie Vance, so I also love her art.
I had never seen anything by Sarah Stern or heard of it. Well, I guess I've heard of Goldie Vance, but I've not seen it before. But Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks I was familiar with. Rainbow Rowell, like you said, we've read her prose YA books. Fangirl is one of my faves.
Yep. And then I love her prose YA book, Carry On.
Which I still need to read.
It's great. Oh my gosh. It's kind of like if they paired Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy, but Draco Malfoy was like a vampire. And it's fan fiction, only they publish it, and it's great. Anyway.
That's literally all books are. They're just fan fiction that people publish.
Yeah. So we already know that we love Rainbow Rowell. But Kate, what did you think of this book in particular?
This book in particular, I ordered off the internet from a site that shall not be named. And it came to me, and I happily sat down to read it. And when I opened the book, pages fell out. And I was like, that's weird for a brand new book. It was like something happened with the binding where it literally just wasn't glued in. So that was my initial impression of the book. I did end up reading it carefully and then returning it for a full refund. So, because I was like, hey, your product fell apart. That was a bummer. So
you forgot the part where you bind it together.
There's very few pieces involved in book publishing, as Kate Lamphere knows. How did you forget this one key element? But anyway, I don't know. I liked it. I read this at the beginning of October, I think, and I was very ready to get in the fall spirit, even though weird climate change fun stuff is happening. And so Michigan was very hot some of those days that I wanted to be in the spirit. So I liked the atmosphere. I shouldn't say that. I love the atmosphere. I immediately went to the store and bought some apple cider because I wanted that atmosphere in my house. I didn't love the plot so much. What did you think about the basic story beats? Were you into it, or did it fall flat for you?
Before I get into that, I want to warn everybody that this is going to be full spoilers, because I always forget to say that, but it's definitely going to be true.
It's a good thing you said that, because I also did not remember. You'd think that we had never done these before. It's only been a few years. We'll get it eventually.
Yeah. So the general plot of this book is that two friends, Josiah and Deja, have worked at this pumpkin patch for multiple years worth of falls together. And as you learn over the course of the book, they are pretty much the very best of friends, but only during fall, because they think that they each have their own lives outside of this pumpkin patch. They don't want to interrupt one another. Like, it's very polite.
They're very work friend vibe.
Yeah, except that it's like, I don't know, it really felt like they were besties to me.
It
like
reminded
platonic
me
soulmates.
of what people are meaning when they say their work wife or their work husband, which are both terms that I kind of squeam at. But yeah, like they're like, we are soulmates at work.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And over the course of this book, you realize that it's their last year that they're going to be doing this. I think they're going away to college.
Yeah, they're seniors in high school, and this has been a high school job for them every fall.
Yep, and they decide to play hooky, basically, and leave their posts and go and try to pretty much taste everything that they haven't tasted at the different food stalls throughout this basically theme park-sized pumpkin patch. And
it's
in the meantime...
very like, yeah, theme park carnival-y. It's not the kind of pumpkin patch that I usually conjure in my mind. But I want to go here. This place looks amazing.
I was thinking about it as Pumpkin Patch Theme Park USA, Small Town America. Like, come and see it. Like, it was very big. There's corn mazes and there's like 100 employees. From the amount of them that you actually meet, it seems like there has to be a lot to run this gigantic place.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, Deja is trying to get Josiah to talk to this girl that he's been like low-key crushing on for the last 4 or 5 years. And he's like kind of a shy kid. He just wants to work hard and do his job and hang out with her. And that's like all that he's interested in. And she's like, no, this is your last day that you have to talk to this girl. We're going to make it happen.
And while we make that happen, I'm also going to go on a quest to eat every single food here.
Yeah. So there is like a journey in this book, and I'm usually really into journey books, but this one was just walking across a very large pumpkin patch and getting into all sorts of trouble, which I liked and I didn't like. Like, it felt like it was supposed to be a journey, like capital J journey,
right.
Like you're off questing the world hunting like sea monsters or something, but it's just a pumpkin patch. But also I kind of liked seeing a lot of the pumpkin patch, so I had mixed feelings.
That's where I was at too, that it was a little underwhelming. You're kind of going from little gazebo to little gazebo, you know, the s'mores pit to the pie hut to the whatever other taffy apple stuff, you know. I don't remember the actual names of them, but, you know, just from location to location, but within the, like, you know, a few minutes walk from each other, and they're kind of talking as they go, and you realize that Josiah is, like, just clueless. Like, he has a crush on someone he's never spoken to, so he knows nothing about her, and Deja seems much more with it, but at the same time, you're kind of like, neither of you want a good reference from this place, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What did you think about the reveal, as it were, the twist?
I've got mixed feelings again. Like, I really liked... So, as you walk through this pumpkin patch, you meet all of Deja's exes, all of the people that she's dated from this pumpkin patch, which seems to be anybody within her age range other than Josiah.
Do they have a pulse?
Yeah.
She's dated them.
So it's LGBT, which is awesome. Like, she's definitely bi or pan, and that was great to see. And the first one of her exes that you meet is a girl, very feminine girl. And so I'm like, okay, she's a lesbian, great. Don't have to worry about a romantic subplot here, except that we do.
Yeah, that was my thing as well, where I'm like, oh, good, we're not going to do a dumb, like, love triangle thing, because that's usually the thing that I struggle with YA is that kind of the cliche. And at least in this case, it wasn't a girl with two boys who love her for inexplicable reasons. But still, I did think that was very... You see it coming from page 2, you know, of, yep, these are best friends that haven't spoken their feelings for each other, and he's gonna... So what ends up happening is that Josiah actually does speak to this girl. She turns out to be awful from, like, the first words out of her mouth, and he's like, oh, you ruined everything by opening your mouth. You get so much less attractive when you speak. Which, like, we've all known people like that. And yeah, so he's like is instantly put off by that, and then, you know, the scabs fall away from his eyes, and he realizes that Deja is the one for him. So,
yeah. And I guess at some point she references that at some time in their history together, she did like him, and she was trying to, like, throw herself at him, but he was just totally oblivious, which I completely believe.
Well, yeah, he was a high school boy. Like, that's just what happens. I mean, high school girls too.
Yeah, I like the idea that they intend to keep in touch after the pumpkin patch. Like, I do think that they are like besties at heart, and I've fallen for that. I want them to be in one another's lives. I don't need it to be romantically, though. That's
where I was at. I also thought, while reading the book and afterwards, about who this book is probably intended for. Like, the age range that's their target demographic, I would guess, is probably middle school, early high school. And for that age range, I think this actually might not be such a basic story. And in that sense, I think I can give it a lot of passes, especially since I really enjoyed the experience of kind of being in Pumpkinland, of having all those crunchy fall leaves and hot apple cider vibes. There were also some really great panels. Like, there's a goat that gets on the loose from the petting zoo. It's just, like, running through panel after panel throughout this graphic novel, just kind of in the background, tearing shit up. And that... I appreciated that. Like, it's so dumb, but I liked it. There's also the reoccurring thing of, like, the little kid picking on Deja, which I did not like.
No, I agree. So with the goat, you hear that a goat has broken out of the petting zoo part of this park, and he's a really mean goat. And that's kind of all that you hear about it for a little while, and then suddenly you see, like, this group, like a large group of people running away from something, terrified. And then the next panel, you see the goat. And this all happens in the background of different panels. And it seems like every other place that they visit in the park, it's just in the background chasing somebody or harassing somebody or stealing somebody's food. And it's really funny, and I really like it because it just adds this element of, like, chaos to what you think is otherwise, like, a reasonably well-organized tourist attraction, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely has that run by high schoolers vibe, where each kind of location they go to, it's, like, slight chaos, out of control, things are burning, but, like, just enough to stay in business, and you're fine, and, like, and that's very much, like, how it is when you're working with a bunch of high schoolers. I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and at one point they have to save some basically substitutes that for the food stand they usually run from burning all of the succotash.
Succotash, there you go.
Succotash.
And I was like, I should actually look up what succotash is, because I'm not sure, but then I forgot to.
It's some kind of vegetable.
Okay. That doesn't sound as appealing as the Pie Palace to me.
I feel like, being from the Midwest, we should probably know what succotash is.
Yeah.
That's all right.
I mean, we're just failures as residents of our state, and that's okay.
If you haven't heard already, Marvel just released a new podcast about the Fantastic Four called Marvels, based on the infamous graphic novel by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross. It's made by the same people behind the excellent Wolverine podcast, and it goes into the story of the Fantastic Four's first encounter with Galactus and, you know, his herald, the Silver Surfer. The trailer for this is incredible. This thing sounds amazing, and if you listen to the Wolverine podcast, I think you'll really enjoy this. So if you want to learn more about Marvels, go to marvelspodcast.com, and if you decide you want to give it a listen, go to StitcherPremium.com and sign up with code COMIC. That's COMIC. You'll get a free month trial of Stitcher Premium, which will let you listen to Marvels right now. That's StitcherPremium.com with the promo code COMIC.
I do like the names of some of these stands, though. You've got the Haunted Hacienda, which is like a little graveyard area, the Pumpkin Bomb Stand, the Pumpkin Slingshot. There's a little map at the beginning of the book that shows you how everything is set up so you can kind of follow their journey through the book. And it's just delightful. Like, it's a little, like, cartoony. Like, everything is a little bit, like, bigger than scale, and it's got, like, all these funny things happening. Like, there's an actual, like... one of those things where they'd throw giant rocks at the walls of castles.
Oh, yeah. The catapults.
The catapults, thank you. So the pumpkin slingshot part of the map has a catapult with a pumpkin in it. It's very funny.
I liked, as they're going on this journey, the sense of time that Sarah Stern gives it with her color work of the changing color of the day. Just the light tones and the not necessarily even the sky, but you can tell that it's getting later and later in the evening as just the light quality changes and in the panels. And I thought that was really a really good use of color because there's really nothing else in the story until the very end where they're like, oh yeah, it's getting late, the park's closing, that gives you any sense of time whatsoever. And so I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that, but you're right. Going back through this book.
Yeah, if you flip through, it's like subtle, panel to panel. But if you, like, over the course of the book, especially if you're reading it in one sitting, you're like, oh yeah, this is transitioning to the end of their day, which I thought was really well done. Yeah, I agree. I also, in terms of color use, they both in color and Faith Erin Hicks drawing, that they didn't stick to just all white stick bodies, that there are lots of different body types of lots of different shapes, sizes, colors, everything in between, like that people just look like people, which I thought made it more of that, like, you could see yourself going to this place, unlike some books where it's like very, I don't know, there's just more of a distance to it when everyone in it just doesn't look like the real world, I guess.
I understand what you're saying, and I agree. It's a very visually diverse cast of characters.
Yeah, and not in like not in a weird or forced way, it just like in a very natural way. And it's not just like, oh, we had a colorist make some of the people not be white. Like that, like you get in some books where it's like an afterthought and it's just like a white person colored brown, and you're just like, well, that's not how that works. So they actually just actually had characters that looked different, which was nice. And I appreciate that Deja is not like a Barbie doll skinny, especially when I think about like middle schoolers reading this. I think that's really good.
I also just really like her hunt for the different snacks.
Right?
That's
like,
definitely something I would do.
It's exactly something I do. Well, no, first of all, I would not work there and not experience all those snacks.
That's true.
Wait, she's the one who had experienced them and was having her last chance to have them. He was the one that kept being like, oh, I've never had that. And I was like, what kind of freak are you? But yeah, and that's there's no like shame on her end or anyone else's when she's like, yeah, I'm getting all this food. I'm like having a sugar fest because it's my last day. And everyone's like, yeah, that's legit.
Yeah, so which snack of hers would you like to try the most?
I think the one that made me the hungriest was when they were at the s'mores pit. And I was like, I need one of those right now. Like the whole, like the campfire smoke and all, and like that whole, like, oh, that's such a fall camping vibe. Like your flannel shirt, your campfire, and you got to get close to it because you're cold, but also because you're roasting a marshmallow. Takes me back.
So there's this snack that they keep referencing called a pumpkin bomb, and I have yet to figure out what it actually is.
Well, it's described. It's like her, like, pumpkin pie ice cream cone thing where it's like a pumpkin pie slice dipped in ice cream and chocolate or something, like on a stick.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's kind of what the illustration looks like.
When you
looks...
combine multiple desserts into a single mega dessert, I'm on board.
I agree. I basically need to figure out how to make all of these snacks. Some of them are easy. Some of them are like caramel corn, s'mores,
Yeah.
fudge.
Pie.
Yeah, but like succotash, I don't know what succotash is. I've never had succotash. And then this like pumpkin bomb thing. I think that we have to have a party.
I'm literally coming to your house on Saturday, so like we could make this happen.
I'll just open the door with the pumpkin bomb.
Like, surprise everyone else who didn't realize what this was going to be about. Okay. I'm looking up succotash. Stand by. Succotash. How do you spell that?
Succotash.
Okay. Nothing on Google makes it look like it did in that thing. It all looks like vegetable dishes. Here's McCormick's classic succotash recipe. Tender lima beans, red bell pepper, and corn kernels combine to create an eye-appealing and delicious side dish. No! That is not the sugar rush I'm looking for. What the heck? Listeners, please write in with what this is about, because Martha Stewart says serve this hearty southern dish as an entree or alongside comfort fare, but it is also lima beans, corn, and various vegetables slurried together.
It kind of sounds like yams, but with different ingredients that would still somehow taste like yams.
But it looks... So in the art, it looks like basically like oatmeal that they're stirring. Maybe it's supposed to be these little bits of vegetables, and I just thought it was some like... I don't know, I had a sense of it being like hot caramel taffy stuff that's getting stirred or something, or like molasses.
So it's like winter vegetable salsa?
Guess so. I don't know.
They were burning it when we see it in the book, though. Like, they're like substitute kids.
Which is probably
it was
fine,
on fire.
Because some poor kids were in line, and their parents were like, no, you're having succotash, not a pumpkin pie bomb. And they're like, but I want a pumpkin bomb. And they're like, that's too much sugar. You're having these vegetables. And then the vegetables caught on fire. And the kids were like, thank God, now I can have my pumpkin bomb.
Do you think that that's why the one kid was such a jerk and kept stealing all of Deja's snacks?
Honestly, the kids being awful in this park was like hands down the most realistic thing about this park. Because that is the worst thing about going to any public location like this. You're like, oh, the magic of fall. And then there's some like kids shrieking because they don't get what they want.
And then they go steal it from somebody else.
Yep. There's like a train. What pumpkin patch have you been to that has a train?
I've been to many theme parks and historical villages with trains, but never a pumpkin patch.
The zoo I worked at had a train. Definitely
Yes.
not a pumpkin patch, though.
Yes, and zoos. I would call this a person zoo that is pumpkin themed.
That's a good one. I also really like the concept of the corn maze has a secret employee cut-through path to get to a different part of the park. I'm like, that's like the most realistic thing. And I want to take that, except not at night. Can you imagine if you're an employee going through the corn maze alone at night to get to your next like station that you have to be at? No, thank you, please. That's where those evil children come back into play.
Yeah, the very end of the book, even after the big reveal happens, I think is my favorite part, because you see the jerk kid in the background having just stolen Deja's last snack. And then the goat comes out of nowhere and starts chasing him. So the last time you see him is him running away from the goat, throwing the snack to try to like get the goat to like follow the snack instead. It's very it just feels right to me.
It's just desserts. See what I did there? See what I did there? Oh. Okay, that's it, folks. No. So, okay, if you had to hand this book off to one person, like one type of person or one person in your life, who would you recommend this to? Who would you most like to give this to?
I don't know any older children.
Well, kind of like an idea of an older child then.
Yeah, like somebody that just started high school, like you said, like late middle school, early high school, kind of a outdoorsy person, somebody that's used to living someplace where it gets cold, because I feel like knowing that it's a little bit chilly in this book helped me like
Yes.
get into it. And I can't imagine like reading this in like Florida. I was just in Florida. It was very warm and feeling like it was fall. Like, I don't know if I could really get into the story.
Yeah, I think I would think of the same kind of kids I think of for Lumberjanes, where especially any queer kids in that age range, any kids that are into reading, are into any of Rainbow Rowell's books. I think if you're into her YA, this is worth picking up. Like at very least, so there's very good parts about it, and then at very least, it's a super quick read. Like, there is very little time commitment to this book because there's very few words per page. So if you want to, you can fly right through it. So yeah, I think like the standard Lumberjanes audience. So like more advanced kids that are younger could probably handle this book pretty easily and enjoy it. Thinking like 4th, 5th graders.
Oh yeah,
and
I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I don't know that once. So I have the distinct pleasure to manage several teenagers, which, like, do not recommend. Just kidding. All my teenagers I manage are true delights. It's just a whole different experience. But I would not hand this to any late teens, I don't think. I think, especially at that age, at least I was less forgiving of things feeling young. Whereas now, I definitely go, oh, well, I'm not their target audience, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Whereas when I was 18, I might not. I definitely did not do that. I was like, oh, this is stupid. I'm way too mature for this. Too cool for school. So.
Yeah. Have you been reading her Runaways series?
I have not. I read the first few volumes of the original run of Runaways, and then the volume was missing from our library, like someone stole it or something, or just didn't return it. Something nefarious so that I can be angry at them, I think. And so I never ended up finishing the series, and then just sort of forgot about it. Like, I didn't have the next one, and then it just, like, didn't happen. And so then when it started back up, I was like, oh, yeah, I gotta finish that, and then I'll read the new ones. But the thing about comics is there's always tons of new comics, and it's like very easy. So that was one of those books that I wanted to read and then just never got to. So, alas.
Yeah, the tone of this book reminds me of Molly in that book.
Yeah.
Because I want to say she's 13, 14, and she's kind of like pretty carefree, but she also understands that sometimes things can be hard.
Yeah, these kids, especially Deja, seems like more emotionally mature, even though she does, like, they both act their age very much, which I appreciate, because you definitely don't get that in a lot of YA. A lot of YA kids act like they're 25. But these kids definitely think and act and speak like kids. But
which I think Rainbow Rowell does pretty well.
She definitely does. I think that's why it's so easy to, like, why I liked Fangirl so much is her college female lead character was such a college female lead character, like a freshman in college, that it was very easy to see myself in her. But yeah, like, to that end, I think people that like Runaways, like that age demographic, I'd hand it to too.
Does this book remind you of any other books that you would recommend if people like Pumpkinheads?
It reminded me the most of Lumberjanes, I think, although Lumberjanes has a very summer feel, that being out, that, I don't know, like that woodsy campfire vibe was still there, and the different people just looking like different people versus all the same kind of look, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I read a book at random that I just grabbed from the library one day called Will and Wit, and it was by Laura Lee Coolidge. And this book made me think a lot about that. That was another kind of younger YA.
OGN?
It was, yeah. And it had the same kind of journey in it. Not that she walked through a pumpkin patch in that one, but it was more of a personal journey, like something had happened in her life that she had to work through. And in that book, she had a personal project. I think she had like an art project that she was trying to finish, and then by the end of it, she'd kind of drawn away from her friends and things, and by the end of it, she would kind of like pulled everything back together herself and her life and her friends, and it kind of just ended on the same upbeat tone that she was together with somebody else.
Interesting.
So that's not a very good description, but tone-wise, they're very similar. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I think we really covered all our bases here. If we missed anything, please contact us. You can find us online at ircbpodcast.com, and the pronunciation guide and merch is all there as well.
You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Kate Elfier, and the podcast is at IRCB Podcast, where mostly Mike and Kara and Xander will post comic book news, art, sass, and more.
You can also email the show with comments, questions, corrections about Succotash, and more at ircb@destroythesybe.org. This episode first aired on Patreon. Thank you for supporting us.
Infinity Shred is the very best in the entire world. They do all of our music. Xander is also very fantastic. He's the wizard that edits our show. Thank you for listening, and until next time, young adult comics are good, and so are you.